What is going on, people? Uh, you might be asking yourself that a lot if you're watching this series. This is Ian here coming at you for another review of Legion, this time with episode 5 of season 2. Now, this was going to be a real firecracker to follow up last week's episode. If you tuned in for that, you'll know that, and if you watch the review, or listen to it rather, you'll know that I love that episode. That was probably one of the best introspective dives we've had in this series, so the direction they went from there was anyone's guess, but we get it right here because of the huge cliffhanger we get at the end of last episode, and that is, how the heck is Lenny back? She's here, she's alive, but how the heck did it happen? And where do we go from here? So, as always, we're going to be getting into the deep waters of spoilers, so if you're waiting to watch this episode, if you don't want to know about stuff just yet, and any of that good jazz, you've been warned. Other than that, we're going to get right into it. So, I do like that we really jump right in this episode without any narration, anything like that. We're kicking off with the exact question the viewer has that, well, I hope you have at least, and I know that I had. Lenny, how are you real? What is this? I mean, how are you even around compared to everything she's actually been through? And we get a quick montage, just a quick review of everything we know, or at least believe we know about Lenny's situation so far. We're jumping all the way back to season 1 here, really going through all the major highlights. Right from the top, when Lenny is capped into a wall by David's powers, she's subsequently killed and begins to become manipulated by the Shadow King, really acts as a face for him, creepily enough. So we've been pretty conditioned to be creeped out by Lenny. And this is all the way up to one of her most recent appearances, at least the last time we saw her before appearing in the real world again. That was in the plane, the astral plane, when David is having a conversation with Farouk, and she's trying desperately to kill herself, something, anything, to get out of her prison and to have a real body again. So right after that, we're dropped into a really funky interrogation room. Again, making you question your very reality on the show, but Clark is sitting down to try and sort things out, try to figure out what's going on with this. Is Lenny actually working for the Shadow King? What's really happening here? Lenny is all over the place, obviously still a drug addict. The first thing she does is beg for anything, something to use, smoke, snort, drink, whatever it is she needs at this point, but Clark's not having any of it. He doesn't hear any of this. He bulldozes right through to try to get answers and the facts. I think one of my crowning lines from that whole conversation, she's like, look, I haven't done anything bad. I'm not a bad person. Like, you've been arrested like 13 or 14 times. She said, all right, look. There's bad and there's really bad. But what did I ever do besides hustle to get high? I love it. I love it. And I think just from that little line too, it seems that her time with Farouk has sort of, I guess, twisted her compass or moral compass, depending if she really even had one in the first place. That can probably be debated by you guys out there. But yeah, this idea of there's just bad piddly stuff, and then there's really bad, aka Shadow King bad, which is at least what I thought she was talking about. So. This really frames the rest of the episode as far as some of the framework we have. So we get a couple of major angles. One is this interrogation of Lenny. We have different characters of our main group taking turns interrogating her, trying to figure all this out. At the same time, we're following Farouk in his journey, who's supposedly hot on the trail of his body. And this is obviously one of the big moments we've been looking for. What will happen if he gets it? What's the first thing he's going to do, and all that good stuff. And then also, of course, third wheel through some of the flashback narrative that we have, building up the Lenny explanation itself, how the heck she's back, and ultimately drawing back to some characters from season 1, and one that I really didn't expect to come up in this episode, but did, and that's David's sister, Amy. Who really has just been through a lot. She in early years just believing David had some kind of condition, that he was actually sick, and all the things she put up with to what ends up happening to her through all this. But we'll get to that. Looking looking back at this in interrogation and the stuff with Farouk, the first thing Lenny does is she's warning everyone that, hey, I'm not the one you should be worrying about. You need to be worrying about Farouk. If the Shadow King, if he gets his body, it's over. And the one thing everyone can't seem to figure out, especially from her physical appearance, is how come she looks like herself, but her eye color is different. There's just some little tweaks about her that just aren't quite the same. And the consistent question we keep getting, no matter who interrogates her, is whose body is that? And I like the different attempts we get through interrogation. To just outline the three characters. You have, of course, Clark first. He's very punctual, matter of fact, to the point, just leaves when he doesn't believe he can get any info or much info. Ptolemy and David. And all of them ask the same question to Lenny. And really, it's something I was trying to figure out as well. Did this body somehow just get created out of thin air by the Shadow King? How much can he manipulate matter? I don't know. So you're really kept guessing on that front. In the same hand, I love the carrot we're thrown. We're sort of baited as an audience to chase this idea that the whole time during this episode, during this interrogation of Lenny, Farouk is hot on the trail of his body. He's about to get it back. Everything's doom and gloom. It's about to be over. And he's talking with Oliver on his road trip. They're heading out to the desert. And he forces Oliver to go dig up a coffin. And I know there's some nervousness possibly about, oh man, is this it? Is this the body? But once it's actually dug up, and Farouk takes a little bit of time to troll Oliver, he gets to the coffin and has a hard time lifting it up, and Farouk just says, look, I'm sick of this, and just uses his powers to lift it via telekinesis. I'm like, why didn't you do that in the first place? Whatever. But when they open the casket, this is not Farouk's body we're talking about. This is Lenny's body. Now, Lenny was buried after the whole wall incident, and for some reason they're there collecting what looks just to be a sample of her, just some basic skin samples or something. And they take that sample with a gun or like a kind of like a capture device that Oliver, it seemed via flashback we get, he seems to have taken that from Division 3 when he broke in. So they take this sample off of Lenny's body, and then they're sort of they wait a while and they're just about their way. So meanwhile, we're getting the cuts in and out of present time with the whole interrogation, and Ptolemy has a freak out when he interrogates Lenny. He again asks the question, whose body is that? He tries to delve into her mind, but he delves so far that he sort of sees almost like a reflection of what happened to him. That is, with the whole black ichor, black gooey mutated chick thing that's been ruining people's minds. So we've been watching this season. It's almost like he sees a flash of that in himself, what the thing that infected him directly in his mind, and freaks out to the point where he grabs Lenny in a stranglehold, and he doesn't come out of it till he's almost choked her lights out. It's pretty crazy. But once he comes down from that, he leaves straight out. And the whole time Lenny's just asking for David. She needs to talk to him directly. And everyone else, she seems to be at least a little evasive. She keeps talking about memories of when she was younger, really erratic and everything else, and never seems exactly on point with whatever she's asked about, or doesn't or find some weird roundabout way to answer it. So finally we get around to what she's asked for. She wanted near the end of the episode, and that's David. David comes in and sits down with her. She's really happy to see him. Of course, he asks the same question, whose body is that? And the whole time he's reading her mind and says, look, there's no point, hiding basic stuff. I can read your mind anyway. And she completely David basically tells us, the audience, what he's seeing is that, look, I know you're working for the Shadow King still. And this is a little fact everyone's been trying to squeeze out of Lenny all day, and she admits to that, but only in a certain capacity. She says, okay, look, I am, but I'm here as a messenger. This is all me. I can't tell you how I got in this body. I just woke up. I don't know. And David pries and pries and pries and comes to the conclusion that she's telling the truth. There's nothing he can necessarily fault from that, but something really, really creepy happens when he dives even further. And it seems like he accesses the pre-memory of this body. And we keep asking this ourselves, so we know this isn't our Lenny just wearing some funny contacts or something like that. Something seems off. And sure enough, we were actually brought to a scene of David's sister, Amy, who we haven't seen her all season, but she's at home, leave with her husband, who is seems really on edge, and I think that frames this whole episode really well. You're constantly waiting for this big moment that doesn't necessarily come, but there's a lot of building impending dread in this episode. He even makes a comment about it, that feeling, something really bad is going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. As he says that, the windmill outside stops cold. He goes to the door to see what's up, what's going on, and he gets just turned to ashes. And is what we've seen during the Division 3 raid when Oliver and Lenny broke in as Farouk's projections. But after that, Amy tries to defend herself, and Oliver comes in. He just teleports behind her, basically. And after washing his hands, he's got this stance as though he's some sort of surgeon prepped, and he sort of blocks her path. And so you know something really sinister is about to happen. And sure enough, of course, with still access to his own vast psychic powers that he has, but also as an agent of Farouk, sort of lifts Amy through telekinesis above the kitchen table and then slams her down onto it. And he pulls that gun out that we saw in the desert earlier that they took the Lenny tissue samples from and decides and uses it on her. So when he uses this on Amy, this crazy moment happens where her whole body starts shifting and bones cracking and popping and her facial structure changing, almost as if, I shouldn't say almost, like it is, like Lenny is being imprinted directly on her. So that's her, Amy's quote-unquote body, but it's essentially like overwritten by Lenny. And it's the weirdest thing. And sure enough, she's transformed shortly after. So we have this Lenny Amy hybrid, and there's the question of the blue eyes. That's why. And at this realization, David loses it. He realizes what's happened to his sister. He tries to get out of the interrogation room, and Lenny's trying to calm him down. And we have a gauntlet thrown down from David at the end of that. He kind of turns pan to the camera, but he's obviously aiming this straight at Farouk. I'm coming for you. So not only that, now there's a bit of a double gauntlet here. There was an interesting moment when Oliver and Farouk were traveling together, right before we're shown the incident with David's sister, that Oliver himself has a moment where he thinks about Melanie, of course, his wife. And this is the first time I think we've seen a seed of rebellion about how he might get out. And as we know, when Farouk got forced out, of course, he got into Oliver. Actually, I was really wondering, man, Oliver's got some pretty powerful abilities himself. Is there any way he could rebel against Farouk? But he might. If anything, there was a pretty direct tell here. He just sort of casually tells Farouk as they're sitting together outside of the grave, "I'm going to kill you." And Farouk laughs it off. "You got to be joking. I'm way stronger than you are. So at least give me a hint how you're going to do it." And all Oliver tells him is, "This is mathematical. What's 1 plus 1?" Farouk answers 2, and Oliver says he's off. So Farouk just lets it slide. He just says, this will be interesting to see. I know I'm interested to see where this goes. So besides a confrontation building between David and Farouk, you have Oliver here, who very well could be plotting a type of rebellion of his own. And all of this puts future Sid in question. Was she right? So we know Sid is the one who's been guiding David on this whole thing in the first place. And remember, a couple episodes ago, she was the very one who said, in a few days from now, you kill Farouk. You smash his head. And if I remember right, you smash his head in the desert. So I wonder, is the vision of Amy, is that the thing that's going to put David over the edge to completely ignore what Future Sid has asked him to do, or not? Or will he find some kind of other answer for that? I think that's a really good way to frame all this and really give us this big impending dread, this big confrontation, and everything to look forward to. As always, though, I ask the timing, when and how it's going to be done. Legion is fantastic with its visuals and all that good stuff, but it's the pace, and it's something that rewards you for its patience. But often, those some of those big payouts like that are sort of hard to find. So I've enjoyed watching something slower pace like this, but that does a lot with that pace. You get a lot packed in to those slower moments, and they're purposeful. There's a lot of reason behind them, and there's a whole lot that happens. But we need to see what's going to become of it. Yeah, as I've said before, you got the Charles Xavier arc out there. You got the actions of what David's going to take. Now you have, of course, the fate of the world, what Farouk will do, and we're reminded heavily here he is still the bad guy. He doesn't have any very good things he's trying to do, or some kind of like altruistic mission. So not sure. But again, an interesting, a tense episode. We've got some fun narrative, three real different ways here. The following Farouk, following Lenny, and also following the past flashbacks. So visuals, again, fantastic. Soundtrack, music is really on the money here. We get some of those weird synth vibes about the Shadow King from that we had in season 1, with those really creepy beeps and bloops and everything. And also, there was a really good moment when Amy is done in, how the track sort of ends like a record skipping, like a broken record. Great mix of audio into the visuals. And stylistically, this is another really cool way of bringing in the episode. Legion on the license plate. I'm kind of looking forward to those each week about how it's mixed up. Just to specify that, when we're brought into the show title, we see Legion on the license plate of the car Oliver's driving instead of the big text we normally have, which is pretty fun. And of course, the narration as always, but that didn't seem to be as central this episode. So a lot here, a lot of cool stuff to hash through. But what do you guys think? Hey, would love to hear it. Leave us a comment. Just drop us a line anytime and let us hear your thoughts. Other than that, thank you again for tuning in, and please stay here, stay locked, stay tuned. More reviews, more episodes to come. Take it easy. Hey people, thank you for tuning into this episode and taking a listen. If you like our content, if you like what you're listening to, or anything we go over, hey, please, we would not only love to hear more from you, but it'd be great if you could throw some support. You can subscribe right below. Also, you can toss us a line anytime. That's ksongmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can tune in for our channel anytime for movie reviews, game reviews, a lot of random wacky stuff. Who knows what you'll hear. And of course, our episode each week where we're bringing the nerdiest things we can find, dig up, and maybe not find, maybe the stuff that just drops in our laps. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you again later. Take care.